right. So here we are. We're picking up on this family app, this calendar app. I started to build this myself. I have a touchscreen, regular HD monitor touchscreen that I had from my days at Fanatic Sportsbook. I was working on their retail application and it runs on touchscreen devices. If you've ever been to a sportsbook, you've used something similar. So I wanted something like that at home, so I just bought this basic touchscreen. I have a mini PC that connects to it. So I was using it to run the sports betting software, well, while I was developing it, not the actual software, you can't do that, but just the local development version of it. So I have that touchscreen sitting around. I was looking at calendar apps because I have a bunch of different calendars for our family, where the kids are going, where we're going, what I'm doing for work, things like that. So I thought it'd be cool, put that up on the wall somewhere or mount it, or just put it on the countertop maybe. I'm good. I plan on running this all locally, integrating it with Google Calendars and iCalendars from iPhones, and having it just be manageable by touching on the screen. So I started to do that, and I said, this is a great chance to try out vibe coding. I've been hearing a lot about it. I've been developing apps for over 20 years, so I figured I could just do it myself, but it was simple enough. I don't have to worry about productionized databases or managing customer logins or anything like that, or customer support. So I figured it was a great chance to start out. So I grabbed Replit. I told it what I wanted. I think that's one of the benefits of being a software engineer that knows how to do this manually. I could give it decent instructions, pretty detailed instructions. I knew what types of things I wanted to do. And honestly, I was so impressed with the outcome that I decided I am going to start live streaming this. I don't know if anyone's going to watch, but I wanted to live stream because I was blown away pretty much by just how good. I haven't looked at the code yet. We will get into that, but just how good the experience has been using the agent to stream this, to do this live. So basically, I told it exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted it to be in HD aspect ratio, so I have it over here as well, 1920 by 1080. That's how it's going to look. I want it to be primarily focused on the calendar grid, not a lot of bells and whistles. I want to be able to navigate through the months and the years. I want to be able to see multiple calendars and be able to click in and see the events. So that's basically what it came up with initially, and then it was done really well. It has toast notifications. You can see on the import screen, it added colors for me. It even gave, I didn't tell it to do this. This is some of the stuff that has kind of blown my mind. It put little information on how to import your calendars, where to find the URLs. I didn't tell it to give me any usability stuff yet. I didn't get that far, but it came up with all this. It even added as you import calendars, they show up here. You can sync them. And then I asked it to do OAuth because I want to be able to create events as well. So yeah, it's just been a real interesting experience. I've given it advice on the display. I told it to move things into web workers when it could, because I plan on just having this thing sit around. It's going to be idle basically all day. I'm not going to reload it much unless I have to. So I want it to be fairly reliable to just sit there on a screen with no one interacting with it. So I know JavaScript in web browsers has a tendency to go idle. It won't be background, so it should be okay. We can always refresh it. But I don't know. So I had to do that. Like I said, I haven't checked out the code yet. It told me it did it. It definitely is doing. I can show you how the import works here in a second. Just wanted to kind of catch us up. I kind of wish I had been recording my experience, because it took me maybe 2 hours to get this far, which is absolutely insane. It does reminders. It will show you any upcoming events. You can import through other calendars. You can even search when events are on here, and then when you can add events here and tell it which calendar you want it to go to. So let me import my calendar here. Sorry, I was trying to bring up my stream to make sure I can hear myself. Yeah, I can. Okay, great. This is my first live stream, you may have noticed. So here we go. So basically, how this is going to work, these are just default what it came up with just for testing. I can delete events. That all works as you would expect. This is all locally. This is not stored in any calendar. The thing I'm going to work on next is actually getting a database behind this, because I think right now it's all just in application state, which is fine because most of it should leverage the actual web calendars. Don't want to add an event. So here we go. We're going to import. I'm going to add a calendar. I have it on here. Basically, you just put your calendar, and some of the improvements I made here were it had another drop down to ask you what type of calendar it was, but I asked it to auto detect based on the URL, and so now it knows. It added it. These are some of the UX bells and whistles that it's just really good at. So this used to be a drop down, and you would select type, and I would have to go in and say Google or iCal, and I said, well, that's kind of silly. So I had it update it automatically, and now it moved it into here. So you can see where it is. And then we worked with the agent on getting this color. Initially, it gave me a color wheel. I thought that would be too annoying from a usability experience to have to drop in and pick a fine-tuned color, especially if they're all very similar. So I told it to generate 10 base colors, and then 2 additional rows of those colors lightened up so that it's very easy to select here. So we'll make it orange. We have, so you can see the X code here, which I didn't ask for, and the type of calendar that it has detected. So I'm going to basically make a calendar called Fed for Life. It's going to integrate with my iCal from my Google account. We have the orange color selected here. Yeah, I'll just pick the middle one. And then it has show example calendars, which is crazy. And then it gave you information on, this is exactly, the funny thing is I Googled this the first time in a separate tab because I didn't read this whole dialogue because I didn't ask it to do this. And I actually went through these steps through the Google search. And then I came in here and I'm like, wait, it already told me how to do that. It was ahead of me on that front. So I click add calendar here, get a little toast notification, which it decided to do all by itself. That does go away, but I think because I hovered it, it won't. And then now you can enable OAuth, which you need to create events. So if I didn't want to create events, I didn't have to do it enabled OAuth. But it adds these. So as I add calendars, it tells you the status, whether it was synced or not. You can remove the calendar, which will remove all the events. If I click sync, it will go through. It was synced successfully. I think I might have one event that shows up on here just for testing. I don't know why this is not going away now. I have to ask the agent if that continues. Now I click enable OAuth, and you can't see, but I get a little pop-up here. So it's doing like a little pop-up window. I click on the account I want it to OAuth. I hit continue because this is a developer account. And then I get a little callback. It closes it out. It updates here. All well done. And all I had prompted it to do was add OAuth support. And this is what it came up with. So it's really interesting that it knows the context of what it's doing. So it knew it had calendars here with buttons and status here. So it added this little OAuth enabled. It added a little OAuth button. This was like an enhancement to an existing feature. It didn't just rewrite everything. It didn't break anything at all. It just added it to functionality and a user pattern it had come up with. That's what's kind of crazy to believe. It gets familiar with usability patterns and its UX decisions, and it knew it could add an OAuth button here in a different color than it already had. It could put the status in here, and it stores all this information. So now that I close this out, here's my test event. It tells you which calendar it's from. It tells you that it's been synced. I have 3 to 4. I can edit and delete this event. So this is, what's today? Today's the 26th. So this was an event yesterday. So basically what I can do, this was another enhancement I had. It used to just have the add event button up here and you have to pick the date. I told it when you click on an empty cell, it's going to pop up the add event. So test notification event. The date's today, so that's the day we picked in the calendar. I can pick which calendar out. It tells you here. I also told it to update this list so it only includes OAuth enabled calendars because you can't push to the other ones. So now I can pick, this event will be synced. It's 9:45. Another improvement I told it to do was this was defaulting to like 12 o'clock p.m. I think, just to be in the middle of its drop down. So I said default this to the current time. And so I can change this. I want to test the 15-minute notification. So Let's make it like 10:05. 10:05 a.m. It's 10:45. Enter a location. This is just a test, and then it's these reminders that are all optional. And I guess you can pick multiples. I didn't even try that yet. 15 minutes before, we're going to save this event. So here we go. We got a test notification. You can see it's using the same colors. So I know these are from the same calendar. If I go into my reminders now I have this test notification event. It's going to notify me in 3 minutes. So the whole point of this was to have the calendar just sit, as I mentioned, on a touch monitor just somewhere in my house. Whether I mount it on a wall or whether I just have it sitting on the counter space. And so someone could go up and just say, hey, what are my upcoming events that have reminders? This isn't all the events, it's just the ones that have reminders, so it wouldn't be every single event. But if you weren't interacting with the screen, what should happen is while it's just sitting there, if you did have any event from any of your calendars, so if I have like a doctor's appointment coming up, or if I have to pick up a kid, or if I have a work meeting, this should basically, without any user interaction at all, so that's part of the caveat of this, that someone may never interact with it. So if it's just sitting here, calendar event comes in, it told you it was going to, in 3 minutes, notify you. So you should just be getting a toast, basically a banner that just pops up right in the middle that says, hey, this event reminder went off. I told it to make it very prominent, so it put it in the middle. And I also told it to auto dismiss itself. So these were all enhancements it made iteratively. It's not something one general prompt that did everything. And it did a really great job of integrating it with the current system. So as we should see in 2 minutes, it will pop up. It will shake itself a little bit. It used to be a little pulsing, but it was hard to click on it because it would move up and down pretty regularly. So I told it to just shake it once when it loads. And then I also told it to add a subtle dismiss timer to the dialog, so that basically if the user doesn't do anything, if it's just sitting here not being used. So now you'll see this modal, same color as the reminders button, pop up in the middle, let you know what event. You could click on it to see the event details, or if you don't interact with it, it will just dismiss itself after, I think I told it like 30 seconds. I forget what it is. But we'll see that in a minute here, how that it did it all. It's supposed to be using. I have to check this out. After we add the next set of features to it, I might dive into the code of what it actually created. But so far, I'm pretty happy with it. It did a great job using all the usable space. It fits into the aspect ratio very well. And I think it did a really good job of putting the important information up front in the calendar and using as much space as possible in the calendar with some buttons to toggle. I might even ask it to shrink the size of the header a little bit so we can get a little more space in the calendar itself. So I should be getting a notification in about a minute here. And then that will be just kind of a demonstration of where we currently are in this app. And it's July 2025. I also told it to get rid of it. It had additional year buttons on the side, but I figure for a family app, we're not going to be moving around in the years very frequently. Probably just going to the next month to see what's coming up. But it did that. It moved the buttons away. It changed it so that if I click on July 2025, I can just change the dates through a pop-up that way. So if I did want to go see what I did last July or what's coming up next year, you can still do that. All right, it's 9:50. I should be getting, okay, it went through on the calendar itself. I might have a little bug here I'm going to have to ask it to fix. I'll give it a few more seconds because I know it only checks every 15 seconds. So it's possible it hasn't come up yet. Yeah, all right. Well, here we go. We got our first bug to deal with live. I asked it to fix this a number of times. So this is one area of frustration where you ask it to do something, it seems that it does it. But when I came back here, let's see if this one had it. This one doesn't have it either. So I'm going to edit the event and we'll see if it comes up on this side. So that's one thing I'm going to have it do. Oh wait, I seem to have lost the connection entirely. What is going on? All right, let's see. We have something. This was not doing this before. Interesting. All right, so something seems to have timed out We're going to try it again. Let's see if it works over here. We're going to edit this event. We wanted to alert us 15 minutes ahead of time. So we're going to make this like, what, 10:09. Okay, so what might have happened is what I had asked it to do was move things into a background process. So it looks like something is not behaving properly on the Replit side. It could just be a bug. Replit is running this all in a live environment. So as you saw, I was clicking on the event and nothing was happening when it had been happening before, and it still works over here. So the code itself seems to be working. So I'm going to sit here with the console log up. We're going to see if the reminder comes up in a minute here. And then it's possible that there was just a bug with the development environment. And that would be the best case scenario, because I know last time I was running this, it was working just fine. The notifications were coming up. They were self-dismissing. And I can click and edit things just fine. So it seems to be a bug. I might just have to refresh my Replit window, which, let's see. I'm not gonna do that right now because there might be some problem. This should all be local. But there might be some problem since I'm running this in a separate tab. It's the same application that maybe it loses session context or something. So I'm going to sit on this window. I'm going to see if it comes up. I'm going to go back to the other window and refresh it and see if I can just add some enhancements to there. So haven't done any vibe coding just yet. We're just catching up to speed on where we left off with this app. So we should be getting a notification in 1 minute at 9:54 of our event starting at 10:09, which didn't happen in the other one, but at least I have the console log open here. So if there is some sort of bug, if something is crashing, we'll see if I don't get a notification and I can't click on the event. That was the behavior that happened in the other app, and that will help us debug a little too. So either there's a problem with the Replit window itself, which is easy to fix, I'll just refresh, or there's actual bug in the code where it can't notify you and it breaks user interactions. So this is what I would do with my own app anyway. I would wait for the notification to come up or see if there's any console errors. So we should be getting a notification in the next couple of seconds here. At least 15 seconds is the time interval. It looks like it is not working. So I'm a little disappointed there because it had been working last time. So there's no notification. There's no upcoming reminders. This is still working. All right. So we're going to go back here. I'm just going to refresh my Replit window because obviously something had happened. It's not a bug preventing interactions. It's just a bug in the code. So here we go. Let's do it. And what I have been doing is basically treating the agent as I would treat a colleague. I try to be polite to it, but I also am trying to use what I would code as prompts to what I'm asking it to do. So basically what I'm going to do is we're not getting real-time reminders anymore. So I'm going to tell it, we are having a problem with the real-time reminder functionality. The reminders, the upcoming reminders. And as I mentioned before, it knows these concepts, these user interaction concepts. So it's kind of like talking to someone who's familiar with the UX. So in this reminders button is an upcoming reminders section that is different from the real-time notification. So I'm giving the agent some context here saying, hey, the upcoming reminders shows the list correctly. So we saw it. It was a few minutes away. We were expecting a notification. However, the remind time passes without the prominent modal display. Can you see if you can fix that and ensure that it is notifying users when the reminders are triggered? All right, so we're going to see what it figures out there. I don't actually know what's wrong. It had been working just fine the last time I had a session. So either there was something running that it broke, but it kept running, or something in a change I made since then broke it and I didn't retest it. That's possible. But again, that is similar to what I might do in my own code. Is I would change the reminders, all the tests work, and then you try it in real life and it's not actually working. So either the timer's timing out or maybe it's not calling the modal dialog. It might be triggering and not updating the display. So we'll see. The cool thing about this too is it's generating tests. I'm very interested to dive into what their test code looks like. But even that amount of it, if you can use it to write your app and get the baseline and start with some actual integration tests, you're way ahead of what you're doing. And as I said, it took maybe 2 hours, I think I spent with it to get this far. I would definitely not have been able to build all this myself with the intricacies of the right colors and the color picker and the OAuth integration in 2 hours. It's pretty mind-blowing that it can do that. Now, whether or not the code is worth keeping for a true production product, well, it's yet to be seen. This is an internal app just going to be used at home, so I'm not as nitpicky about what I want the code to look like or how mobile and responsive it needs to be. This is a very, there we go. So it's running its test. Should trigger soon. That's what it should look like. You'll see the little dialogue at the little progress bar at the bottom. So the functionality is all there. The cool thing is it's telling you what it's doing over here on the left. So it's telling me it's adding some debugging. It's updating the timer. We saw it show up, so we know the code still works. So there's probably just some disconnect between it showing up or not. So the server's restarted. Because there's no persistence here, I'm going to have to import my calendar again. But that's fine. And it tells me here that it restarted everything. It has a test event scheduled with a 1 minute reminder. How did you do that? I want a 1 minute reminder. Actually, I might ask it to do that too. Let me check the browser console to see if the workers are running and processing events properly. Yeah, so it knows that it's using web workers for this, which is cool. Maybe that's a little over optimization, but it wasn't working before. I think it had timed out. The events are being, here we go. Events are being passed correctly to the worker, but I need to add logging to see if events are actually being sent. So it's working through all this stuff. It's testing what the UI does. It's testing what its web worker code does. It's telling me what it found. So far to me, this is like almost pair programming with another developer. I know there's been some controversy over the idea that AI can code. I think, was it Zuckerberg said that AI can code at a junior or senior software engineer level right now. And I think technically that's true. It's definitely, it understands what I told it. It knows where to look. It figures it out. It updates the code. It can do things at a fairly competent level. I think a lot of your success comes to what you ask it to do, how much context you give it, and also the good thing about Replit that I like is this is backed by Git. So if it were to just blow some things away and make some terrible changes, I can go back through my Git history and start over again and undo things. So I think as long as you set up your interactions with a vibe code agent like this, as you would with maybe an offshore, or not even offshore, but an outsourced development team. So pretend you're working with a consultant who is just giving you code and doing what you ask them to do. This has been my experience anyway. I usually code review code as it comes in. I use all through Git with branches and everything. So you kind of, and you're going to do, when I get to the database, I'm going to make sure we have database migration set up, and we can take snapshots of our database so that if it does ever blow anything away, we don't lose too much data. But that's normal precautions you would take when working with other developers anyway. You trust them, you want them to work for you, but it's your code, it's your product, so you need to add the protection layers. You are the one who need to be able to recover from disasters. You need to be able to spin up like disaster recovery. That's not up to the agent, in my opinion, to do. You can ask it to do it. You can make sure it did it right, but it needs to be done to your standards. So if I was at the point where I was building a production app, I would make sure either I did that myself, did the database migrations, did the backups, or I asked it to write the code to do that, and then I confirmed that all of it worked. Because that's just what you would do with if I was writing this myself, I would make sure it was resilient. I would make sure it was redundant. I would make sure it was protected. I would put it into Git. So I haven't gotten that far yet, but I would ask it to use Git. We would only publish into production through a defined CI/CD pipeline. I'm not just having it push code in and run things in production willy-nilly without any checks and balances. And it's just what I would do in any other company I worked for. Meta now has a really robust set of pipeline rules and failure recoveries and rollback methodologies, and they didn't just do that for fun. I'm sure it was built because they learned lessons along the way. So that's what I would want to set up here. I know the vibe coding gets you into an app really fast. Like I could just tell it to deploy this and share it with the world, but there are no balances. There's no checks. I could delete all the code. I could run some malicious code. I don't know if it's defending itself against like cross-site scripting and things like that. So there are certain just normal procedures that you'd want to take as a developer when you're working with a production code. This is a internal, just for me, prototype app, so I'm not going to put those. When I get this working the way I want it, I probably will go through some of those exercises just to see, kind of set the foundation for if I did want to use Replit to build something that I might deploy and share with other people. I'd want to make sure it was pretty bulletproof. So that, as you can see, that took a while, but it did a lot. It was updating its test code. It was telling me everything it did along the way. And then what I really like about how Replit works is, see how this is in a different color? It has a little celebration horn. I don't know if you could see that little trace there. It is trace going around. This means it's done. And this is the summary, the TLDR of what it did. So here's what it did. It fixed. Reminder worked correctly. So reminder correctly process events with exponential backoff retry. Notification triggers precisely at reminder's time. Tested with a 1-minute reminder. Console log confirms complete data flow. So this is something that's interesting. This is how a normal developer, a human developer, would do this. Put it in the console log, run through your tests, see what the console log says. That way you're making sure everything works. And it does that. He's even before asked me to confirm what I see in the console log. Background process handling long idle periods. This is something I asked for a number of prompts ago, because I told it was going to be idle for a long time. And then modal notifications should now appear when prominently when reminders trigger. Again, that was an earlier prompt. So it says the system just successfully triggered a test reminder. You should see the notification modal on the screen. I did. The web worker architecture ensures reliable notifications. I can take its word for it for now. We'll look into it later. Can you confirm the notification appeared? It did. And would you like me to test any other? I did see it. This looks like it is working. Can you update the create event dialog and add 1 minute before as an option? That would make it easier for me to test as well. So right now, as you saw, I can only add 15-minute increments. So I kind of have to do the math, and I have to sit around and wait. If I could do it as 1 minute as well, that would be fantastic for my testing. So I could create an event for 10:06 or 10:07 really, and wait for 10:06. I kind of like that. So since I'm going to have to test it again anyway, I'm going to just ask it to add that to the dialog. So right now it told me that it fixed the problem we were seeing with the auto reminder showing up. And since I'm going to have to run through a bunch of my own manual testing, that's just been something that's annoyed me anyway, that I have to pick 15 minutes and kind of back off the math myself. So, and I think that's fairly common. I've been changing my work notifications now. The 10 minutes, the 15 minutes before, honestly not really helpful. I don't know if you're like me. If I see a reminder for a meeting that's coming up in 10 minutes and I dismiss it, I'm usually 10 minutes late to the meeting, because that's 20 minutes go by quickly. So usually what I've been doing is snoozing until start time, or snoozing until a minute before anyway. So that way, except when I'm in the office. When I'm in the office, I have to get up and go find the conference room. So I'll do like 5 minutes before. But really, I think it's most helpful to get calendar notifications right before you plan on taking action. So for like a doctor's appointment or pick up a kid, it might be 15 minutes before, so that I can get in the car and go pick them up. Here we go. Okay, so now it didn't add this in the little purple. This was, oh, that's not purple anymore. So this was just like a highlight. But what it does here is it took a screenshot. This is something it didn't do last time, but it does this whenever you ask it to add functionality. It gives you this little green check mark. So it basically says, hey, I finished this. So this is a checkpoint made just now. I don't know if that relates to Git. I'm going to go check actually. I'm hoping that means it made a Git commit. I don't know what a checkpoint means other than that, but it made an internal checkpoint. This is what I asked it to do. Improve the event creation by adding a reminder option. And it takes a screenshot of where it was. And you can roll back here and you can see the changes. So if I go into the changes, it is taking me to Git. So it looks like it added a minute here, showing 2 changes. It added the event, or updated add event modal, and it updated notification banner. So these are modified. Let's see, does it show me the code? Wow, I get the diff here and everything. Now the use state is an array of options. Interesting choice, but that's fine. 1 minute before. And then what did it modify here? It's just, oh, it took out the console logs, It didn't actually change what it's displaying here. So, I mean, as you can see, this is very similar to working with other developers, other human developers, where you ask them to do tasks, it comes in. Now, there's no code review and diff review process here. It just kind of commits things, but I can at least go see what it did. This is very minimal changes for something that I asked it to do, which is great. I love to see that it doesn't have to make it. It's pretty efficient with its code. So let's see. Can you not see my whole screen here? I thought I had that correct. Let me shrink my screen down a little bit. I just noticed that some of it's getting cut off. So hopefully you've been able to see what I was talking about. The messages at the bottom. So we'll make sure this. All right, so here we go. I'm going to, let's do without importing. This will be faster. I can add an event, test reminder event. It doesn't need to be on my other calendar. This is my local calendar. It's 10:15. Let's see. There's 1 minute before. So let's say the start time is now going to be 10:09. We'll have to do 10:10 now. Okay, there's our test reminder. There, it's been successfully created. Oh, there we go. So that worked. It was 1 minute before. It says 1 minute before. In fact, it didn't even get in a screen because it was so soon after. So let's edit it again. We'll say it starts in 2 more minutes because I want to see that list show up 1 minute before. Great. Wait, don't tell me the upcoming reminders is now broken. Interesting. All right, well, we have another bug. We fixed this problem. It's 1 minute before, but it's not updating our upcoming reminders. That change looks great. The prominent reminder works as expected now. There is a new problem. The recommended, or the upcoming reminders is not correct. It's not accurate. It doesn't. Even though I recently created one and the reminder showed at the correct time. So now we have the reverse problem. It used to be showing up in here, and now it's gone. So now we're getting some back and forth here. I might have to start prompting it to, actually I'm going to do that right now. Can you fix this? And when you test reminders, test both scenarios. Upcoming list and real-time trigger. So I'm going to ask it to test both. So this is working just fine now. 1 minute before, we got it at 10:09. We got it at 10:11. This is great. Let's just make sure this part works. I can click it. I can see it. So yeah, everything with this notification, all the UI is working fine. There's its test reminder. So now what I've asked it to do is fix the upcoming reminders list. Maybe it just was because it was a minute and it wasn't checking for the new changes. But I'm asking it to run both tests together. So basically, anytime it makes, hopefully it will keep this, keep that in mind. Yeah, that's what I thought. The reminders panel is missing the 1 and 5 minute parser logic. So that makes sense because we did see it before with the 15 minutes. So that's good. It just missed the connection there, which again, a human would make the same mistake. Oh yeah, I added an earlier threshold that doesn't get into reminders list. That seems like a very normal, easy to fix problem, and it's not an actual bug. It was a new enhancement that didn't get in both. But hopefully me telling it to check both scenarios will mean that in the future, if I make any reminder changes, it should test that both of those are linked together. It should see it in the upcoming and it should remind me. But you can see it updated the app, it reloaded the app, and now it's going to test in about 6 minutes. All right, there we go. So we got the checkpoint. We got the, we get both of these now. So we got the checkpoint with the thumbnail. This is what it does whenever it makes changes to the code and updates things, updates features. And now it told me what it did. So this is, oh, the other one was a little celebration. I don't know if this is random. This is a little wrench. It says to fix the upcoming reminder. So it includes 1 minute and 5 minutes, which again, this is a little change. I only asked for 1 minute, but I told it it would make it easier for me to test. So it figured out like, oh, 15 minutes was the smallest threshold. Let's add 1 and 5. So this is it going above and beyond what I asked it to do. Maybe some people would find that annoying that it does things you didn't ask it to do. But this is how working with someone who knows the product decently would feel like. Like, oh, I know you've only asked for 1 minute, but I bet you want 5 minutes too. And it didn't add 10 minutes, which is fine, 1 and 5. So now upcoming reminders. Can I open a reminders panel? Let's see. Okay. There is none in there, so that's maybe a little problem. There are no items in the upcoming. All right, so it told me to confirm, and I clicked on it, and there was nothing there, so we might still have a problem here. I see the issue. The server restarted and the test event was lost since we're using in-memory storage. Well, there, it confirmed it knows it's storage too. That's what we're going to do next. As soon as I make sure we're working here, we're going to add a backing store to this. I think in-memory it would even be fine. The problem is I have a feeling it's going to crash from time to time, or someone's going to, if I lose power at home, I don't want to have to re-import all my calendars. So I'm going to ask it to create probably just like a SQLite database backing. I don't need it in the cloud or anything like that. I'm just going to have it run locally. I should have enough memory on my little mini PC. So it's going to run the database locally. All I really wanted to keep are the searchable index. It can probably just search in state, but I think there's going to be too many events because I'm going to probably have like 10 calendars on this thing. So there's going to be too many events for it to just search everything in memory. I'll just have it search to the SQLite. I think it's fine if it's a little slow. But the SQLite can just run locally. We'll run a little node process locally. It's something that you could deploy into the cloud, and instead of SQLite, have it use like an Amazon relational database or something. Relational is just fine. All right. I've added the debug log. I created the test. Worker correctly receives. Please open the reminders panel. There's no bell icon. It doesn't remember I told it to remove icons. There's nothing there again. This will show us as the panel's receiving events. All right, I'm not going to do what it says here because I think we might have the same problem. It created it and then it restarted. I'm going to just test it myself. Test upcoming reminders. So sometimes you don't do what AI tells you to do. That's for today. We're going to make it 10:18. We're going to make it 1 minute before. Can I choose both? I can. So let's do 10:25. See if we can get both. Save event. I haven't tried this before, so I might just be... All right, but that does work. All right, so they are showing up in the list. The problem here, this would never work. It's going to keep doing this. It's going to create a test event. It's going to restart the service, and then this test event's going to be gone. But this is working. We're going to get a reminder in 3 minutes and a reminder in 7 minutes. So I think that is cool. Let's see what happens if I edit the event while it's in here. So let's edit event, it's 10:16. Let's say we want it to be 10:23. 5 and 1 minute before. Yeah, okay. So it got rid of the other one successfully. It showed us this is up to date. I was actually wondering if I would have 4 in here because it didn't remove the older reminders. So this looks great. So in 1 minute we should get a little boop. There's no sound or anything, so I'll have to make the sound for you. But if that works, then we're good to go. Now everything's working here. And because this reminder, actually, I bet you it's not on the other app because it's in memory state. So I bet you if I go to this app, that one won't even show up. So what I'll do is I'll add the test to, I'll import a calendar, I'll add the test. Oh, no, I won't have the imported calendar over here either, so that's just not going to work. But let's see if this thing shows up. So at 10:18, I should get the 5 minute before reminder. And then the upcoming reminder should only have the other one. But I'm confident that's going to work because it's been working fine. It just didn't have the 5 and the 1 minutes. So 10:18, let's go. So this is something I think if I had coded all this and I was just in the code, by the time I got here, I could have added this myself faster and I wouldn't worry about breaking these things. But again, it doesn't feel that off of if you're trying to move fast and you just added 1 in 5 minutes and you tested that all, posting it worked, the real-time reminders worked, you might have just forgotten to add it to the reminders. And now I have to just wait 10:18, there we go, 5 minutes before. It's auto-dismissing itself. I'm not even going to wait for that. So that's good. And then upcoming reminders. All right, everything's looking good. This looks great. So now we're on a good spot. So the next thing I want to do, I have reminders, I have import. We'll just call it fed for life again. So what we should see, oh, that's interesting. So it removed it from the recommended, but it seems to have kept the 2 reminders. All right, I'll have to come back to that. That seems like a bug, but I don't know how often that's going to really happen if you keep changing the reminder. But it seems like it kept a list of reminders, and even though it updated the list properly, it still had 2 triggers sitting there waiting. So I have a feeling that there's a bug there, but that's pretty low. If this was a real product at work, I would add this as a bug. It would go on a fairly low list. I'd have a backlog of bugs. I might start doing that as we get closer to ending this project, how I would run a project at work. So basically just imagine there's a backlog of bugs. We add this, hey, you get 2 triggers. I think that's fine. That's not as big a deal. So let's add our calendar back in here. We're going to enable OAuth. You can't see this window, but I am going through the little verified steps. Get the little callback, authorization successful. It updates here, and I'm going to hit sync. We're going to close. Test upcoming reminders. Event starts at 10:23. All right, we do have some. Oh, no, I see. This is not my event. This must have been the one that it created, right? Test upcoming reminder at 2:20. It's on a different time zone than me. 10:23. Test upcoming reminders 1 in 5 minutes. That is mine. Okay. All right, well, we have some sort of bug going on here, but here we can see this is my Fed event, 10:05. I'm going to edit it again. Now we have additional options here. Let's make sure this works with Google. So 10:25, we're just going to get it 1 minute before, and we're going to update it. There we go. I'm going to go to my other calendar too. I'm going to go look at the calendar. You can't see this, but I'm checking the Google Calendar that this is actually synced to. And I'm going to make sure this event went through. There it is, test notification event. This says it is 10:05. What does this one say? So I don't know if that got updated. Test notification fed event is at 10:25. So edits might not be going through because it doesn't show up. It might just take a couple seconds though, so I'm gonna wait. All right, we got another one. All right, so we have an issue here. This is not dismissing my reminders. Okay, it definitely has a bug. All right, this is moving up in my priority list. This is working now. However, the reminders, the prominent reminder is triggering at every interval after the time has passed, even when it's been dismissed. Well, I don't know if that's true. This is the 1 minute before. All right, let's just see if we get, 1 minute. Yeah, it is. Okay. So that's definitely the problem. So now it's correctly triggering when the threshold has been passed, but now it looks like what's happening is every 15 seconds, which is when it checks, it's triggering again. So I don't know if it's creating a worker for every single reminder, which that's not what I want it to do. It definitely is chopping up a little bit. What I would like to have it do is have one worker that's just constantly checking for reminders. So this might be something I'm going to have to dive into the code of to see what it's doing. The easiest way to do this would just be have one process running that's checking every 15 seconds to see if there's any event threshold that you just recently passed, and then storing that it did that, or just making a list of things it has to look at and checking their times, because there shouldn't be that many of them. And now it looks like it's either spawning a process for each reminder that it comes across, which would be bad. There's no need to do it that way, because then you have to make sure you delete them, and anytime you have anything like that, you got to manage. And it did not update the calendar event on my Google Calendar. So let's see if we can make it do that too. But right now, there's duplicate code causing syntax error. Okay, so it could just be a bug where it doesn't dismiss it. That's fine too. But I don't know why it's test. I guess it's test didn't check that. But now what I'm concerned about is editing the event did not persist. And I shouldn't have to hit sync every time. Okay, fixed upcoming reminders list, which that was working. Prevent duplicate notifications by filtering already active reminders. Cleaned up debug console for production ready system. Interesting. Created a test event at 2:26 with a 1 minute reminder. Worker properly tracks checked reminders. Okay, so we don't have anything in here because, as we know, it cleans it out. So that's good. I'm going to move forward from this and start adding the database persistence, because that's going to be most helpful next. So I'll create another one. Test local reminder, so I know I don't have the same name. We're going to do it at 10:32. We're going to do it at 1 minute and 5 minutes before. Save event. Okay, it's been successfully created. 5 minutes before is coming in 1 minute. So we should only get that reminder once, hopefully. Let's import my Fed calendar. Do OAuth. This is a pretty simple process, pretty quick. When the internet is working. Okay. Great. That's been done. Let's sync the calendar. Okay, so I should be getting a notification now. It says now, but it didn't come up yet. Oh, okay. Well, now we're getting into the vibe coding problems. It's not giving me the reminder anymore. It keeps breaking the thing it says it fixed, and then fixing it breaks something else. Test local events 1 minute before. It says now. It didn't come up yet, so let's see. We'll give it a few seconds. But we are no longer getting notifications. All right, one more pass at this. The notifications no longer trigger a display at the correct time. Let's see if it drops off the list. Oh, wait, there it goes. Okay, there's the 5 minutes before 10:32. Okay. So that's fine. That went away. So I don't know, maybe it changed it to working every 30 seconds instead of 15. Oh, not again. Test local reminder. It is triggering, but it still continues to trigger after the time has passed. Can you make sure you are only running a single process to check for these notifications and properly cleaning up any notifications you've already displayed? Alright, because that was working before. At least I think it was. Let's use the worker continues to trigger the same reminders. It stays within the 15-minute window. It keeps re-triggering. Okay. Interesting. Why 15 minutes? I wonder if it hard-coded on that 15-minute interval before. So this might be a side effect of me having shortened the time windows. It might have made the optimization that it only needed to check for every 15 minutes. We got use effects in there. Handle new reminders from the web worker. Filters out reminders that are already active to prevent duplicates. Okay. I like that it's using a use effect. It has a React hook order issue. I don't know why the hook order would matter. Now I need to add dismiss reminder method to the worker class. Okay. I mean, it sounds like it's doing the right things. It's updating the hooks. It's adding a dismiss reminder. And it's debugging itself. All right, I'm not even going to bother. We're not going to go through this anymore. I'm going to have it add some local database because I might have to jump in here and fix some of this code, but this is pretty low-hanging fruit with these reminders. It's now every time it does this, it's clearing out the events that it creates. So I'm gonna go into Git. I'm actually going to see if I can tag this. These look like they're all coming here. I'm going to sync this with remote. So I'm going to push this. I have this pass confirm for this session. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure this got into my GitHub. That way everything's backed up. If we completely lose things here, I can look through the GitHub side of it. So we're going to get rid of this for now too. So we're just going to focus on this. So we have the preview. We have our secrets console here. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so now we're going to get into what I want to accomplish this session of vibe coding. That was just kind of a little review of where we are. I didn't expect it to take so long because all of this had been working prior. But we have reminders, we have update calendars. It looks like it's not updating, so we have a couple of bugs. But as with any MVP, you're going to have some bugs, and you just have to prioritize work to work on. Luckily with agents, I can probably have it do both of these things, but for the sake of having a human orchestrating all this, I'm just going to move on. As you saw, if you were watching earlier, everything is stored in local memory, basically just an object in the application while it's running. So whenever the app restarts, These are test events it creates, bootstraps when it runs the app, but these are not in a database anywhere. So whenever it creates additional ones for testing and then restarts the app, they go away. Whenever I import my calendar, it's here only while the app is running. If you refresh, it goes away. So I'm going to ask it now to create a local database, not a cloud database. I'm going to see if it can do that. SQLite would be fine. Have it run that in a local process and store everything there. So that's what I'm going to ask it to do. We're going to see if it can do that. I don't want it to spin up a cloud. I don't need to use my free Amazon. I actually want to run all of this locally, and the only internet needed should be to sync with calendars that are on the internet. Everything else should be local. It's not going to be shared or anything like that. I may eventually move it out to that if I end up, we use this and I want to have it in multiple places. But for now, there's going to be one. It's going to be sitting in a single PC somewhere. So here's what we're going to do. Let's start adding a database layer to this so we can persist our changes to events, imported calendars, OAuth, etc. I don't need a cloud database for this. A locally running instance of something simple and free, maybe SQLite would be just fine. Build a data model that supports what we currently have. Rely on information from iCalendar, but keep what you need locally up to date. And expose it via a local API. Again, we don't need to involve cloud instances for this. I intend to run this all locally with Node and React. All right, let's see what it takes from that. I think I explained it well enough. I don't know if there's any caveat. I'm not actually sure how it's running, but I know it's running Vite. I think that's the only thing running right now is a Vite process, just running in dev mode. So basically all I wanted to do is add a Node service along with its web dev server, have some API calls, basic CRUD would be fine. Okay, he's going to implement a Postgres database instead of SQLite. I don't want to manage Postgres. I told it I don't want a cloud storage. The schema's fine. It can be Postgres. If it runs Postgres locally, I'm okay with that. I can install Postgres locally. We created a database. I don't need it, but we'll let it go. I'm not going to make too many changes. I will like to change this. I think I'm not going to want to use its managed Postgres, but if it's as simple as changing like a connection string, I can point it at a local Postgres and that's fine. I don't want to fight against it. It's something I've learned when cooking. You make the recipe according to the recipe first, and then you make changes from there. I've made that mistake before where I didn't even get it working the way it wants to work, and you end up fighting uphill for way too long. So at least this, if we can get it all to work, and I can see what the database looks like, and I can see how it's connecting to a Postgres database, ultimately it shouldn't be too much different from what I asked it to do. As long as it's creating a schema, and it's connecting to the database through a local API, then it should be pretty easy to change what database it talks to. The only problem would be if it's actually not creating a database and it's just telling the managed instance to do all this stuff. So we will see. We will see what it does. Let me completely rewrite the storage file since it has duplicate and mixed content. All the remaining mem storage methods. All right. That's fine. I just don't know how it's going to search it. Is it going to search against the database, or is it going to search events in memory? Everything else should be pretty simple. Now, the good thing about this is what we should be able to do is once I import my calendar that should persist through restarts. And that will be good because this is getting annoying. Now that there's more features I want to test, every single time we make a change, I got to start all over. So that will be mission number 1. We'll have accomplished this task if I import a calendar and then restart the app and the calendar is still there. Now I might have to re-OAuth it, that's fine. Oh. It added those events at different times. Now, I don't know why they're different colors because I asked it not to do categories. It must still have the category idea. There's no other way these can be different colors. Okay. There's the reminder. Team meeting starts at 11 a.m. 30 minutes before. All right, so let's see what it told us it did, and let's see where this event is coming from. A soccer practice? Okay, team meeting at 11. I think it just happens to be the test data. PostgreSQL data, or Postgres database setup complete. Database schema migrated with users, events, and calendars. So I don't know why I have users, but database storage class implemented with all event and calendar management methods. Simple events added to database for testing. Application successfully restarted. The calendar application now uses Postgres. Instead of in memory, all your events, imported calendars, and settings will be saved permanently. How does the calendar... this looks good. Explain to me in greater detail the relationship between our new Postgres persistence and my imported calendars. Are you replicating the entire calendar in our local storage? And that occurs when synced. All right, I'm asking if it's replicate. I don't want it to replicate because if someone were to change the calendar, like if I'm on my iPhone and I add an event, I do eventually want it to show up here. But is it going to put it in the database? Am I keeping all of our calendars in a database now? So let's see what it tells us it did. Yes, we are replicating the entire imported calendar. Okay. Stores metadata about each imported calendar, name URL, that's fine. Sync settings, track OAuth credentials, that's fine too. Records last sync time and sync intervals. Assigns display colors. Event table with sort. All right. So it sounds like what's happening is when I import a calendar, it's going to store my credentials or the metadata as it calls it, which was fine, in my database. That's what I wanted. So every time I reload the app, I should have my imported calendar. It's going to track my OAuth, which is also what I wanted. It records the last sync time and sync intervals. So I don't tell it what my sync intervals are. So I don't know if this is something that it's just managing hard-coded. If it's going to be syncing behind the scenes, and then it assigns display colors, that's fine. Events table, every imported event gets stored as a full copy. Source calendar tracks which imported calendar it came from. External ID, this could get tricky where it's not, if it doesn't get updated correctly, now my calendars get out of sync. So I have events that are no longer in the other one. It doesn't know to delete it. This is adding a layer of complication, but it will allow me to search things. It means it doesn't have to check the other calendar and it can persist. But I'm not sure this is the best way to do it, but that's fine. When you import a calendar, we download the entire iCal, parse all the events, store them locally, tag each event with its calendar, and keep the external event ID. Once synced, you can view, okay, I agree. Offline access is great. It's fast. That's also true. Search across. This is actually a really good reason to do this. So because it's doing this for my imported calendars, that means every time I import calendars, it's still only creating events in a database that can all be queried. I agree with Replit in this case. This is a great way to search it. The thing I'm concerned about is them getting out of sync and how we manage that. Our background worker can process reminders. That's true. It can probably even create some triggers for this and store them separately, but that's add local reminders. Okay. Read-only calendars, most iCal feeds, periodic resync. Okay. We delete old events from that source and import fresh ones. Bi-directional with OAuth. Local changes can be pushed back to Google Calendar. Two-way sync. Okay. That does sound really good. This sounds really good. You mentioned a sync interval. What is that interval? Where are you managing this? And how do we prevent the calendars from getting out of sync in the future? All right, so now I really do want to know about this sync process. All right, now it's going to show me the sync intervals, how they're managed. Because everything else it told me sounds good. We're going to have a unified database. If this was a lot of people or a lot of users, this would blow up my database pretty well, but it's just my family, so that's no big deal. I'm sure I'm not going to hit any kind of database limits. It's going to move local, so I wouldn't even actually care that much anyway. All right, so let's see what it does for this syncing process, because this would get annoying if I'm getting out of sync. I'm going to have at least a dozen calendars on here, and my wife and I are going to be adding them through our phones. Maybe have my kids. We have a shared Google Calendar as well that people add things to. So there's going to be a lot of changes that don't happen through this event. So this is one thing to worry about when you have a online. This is just a client, one of many clients that can talk to these online calendars. So if this was the only app, you can sometimes get away with database integrations like this, because my app is the only one making changes to the database in that scenario. But in this scenario, most of the changes to the calendar are not going to come through this app. They're going to come through iPhones or our other computers. And it just needs to make sure it stays in sync so that if I delete an event or if I add an event through my phone, it eventually shows up here. I'm not going to really add events this way, but I did want to add the feature in case we're at home and we're talking about something and we say, oh, don't forget we have soccer practice tomorrow, which is funny that it used it as an example, but I did tell it was a family calendar. So anyway, all right, here's the completed sync system. Default sync interval is 3,600 seconds. So every hour per calendar source. All right, I'm going to ask it to, I think, an hour per calendar source. I don't know if it just phrased that improperly. Hold on one second. All right, so I'm gonna dive into this. Like I said, I'm gonna have a dozen calendars, and if they're all syncing at different intervals, and we have 12 different processes syncing these calendars, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. It would be better, in my opinion, to just have one process that's background syncing. It can do it every hour, that's fine. Not per calendar source, unless it could just mean every hour it syncs each calendar source. So it might just phrased it wrong. So it's stored in sync interval column in the calendar sources table, but no. So it's in a separate table. It sounds like they all have their different sync intervals. I don't know why. Each calendar can have its own. Okay, this is why. I don't ask for a custom sync interval though. I don't know why I would bother doing that. Background sync worker. Okay, so we have this in JavaScript running on the client. Runs every 5 minutes. Sync interval, checks all active calendar sources, determines if each calendar needs syncing. Okay. Well, this does, I mean, this is fairly robust. It's thinking ahead here. Like, there's no way in our UI right now to active and deactivate calendars. So this is kind of an unnecessary optimization here. But I can see where they're headed. So they're thinking, they want to add some controls here. So when I import a calendar, theoretically I could say, hey, only sync this every day or sync this every 10 minutes because this is an important calendar. I can deactivate them rather than unimport them, especially if I did have multiple clients and maybe I wanted one to only be one calendar, but I was using the same database. So since this is a managed database, it's possible that multiple apps are connected to the same data. Smart retry logic. If the sync fails, I don't like this being in the client though. I'm going to ask it to, it says background, but this looks like it's the background of the client. I'd prefer that this just syncs on the server. But I guess the client has to go and query, like pull data anyway. But the problem that I can see with this, for me, it's not going to matter. I'm only going to have one client. If I had 6 of us or 6 people in my family, if all 6 of us were using this client, all 6 of them would be polling for syncs every hour. I guess that's fine because it's actually just checking to see if it needs to be synced. So if this works the way it's phrased, if my client checks it needs a sync, it's going to run a sync. If my son's client were to check 10 minutes later, it would check it doesn't need a sync, so it won't sync. So this might be fine. And that way the client is doing the polling. Smart retry logic. If it fails, it uses exponential backoff, which is what I asked it to do before. Resets retry count. All right. Individual timing. Each calendar has its own. That's fine. We'll stick with this. Automatic background sync. Every 5-minute worker checks. Oh, so it does have. Okay. So it has one in the client, and then it has an automatic background sync. Sync all button in the import modal. Individual calendar sync buttons. Immediate sync triggers. All right. Last sync timestamp, sync interval, and is active. Okay. Preventing calendar drift. Interesting. Timestamp based detection. If last synced is greater than the interval, time to sync this calendar. All right. Full replacement strategy. Deletes all events. All right. So it's doing a full replacement. That was one thing I was curious. So if you delete it, it's not trying to diff the calendars and see which events it needs to remove. It deletes all of the events, and then it re-imports all the events, which I can see why it's set the default to 1 hour. It probably would be more efficient and smarter, but it would also be a longer process to sync the calendar, diff it when you get the updated one, and then do kind of like an upsert instead. Delete the ones you don't want, edit the ones you already have, and insert the ones that are new. So in this case, it's just saying, hey, blow away the whole thing, import the new ones. Every hour seems fine for that. And in fact, since it's doing all that, it might make sense to just do it every 12 hours. Like, I don't think the calendars are going to be changing that frequently. You kind of just want it for the whole day, every 4 hours maybe. But for now, for testing, we'll keep it every minute. Failed syncs don't update last sync. Exponential back off. All right. Manual sync has a fallback. Work calendars could sync every 15 minutes. Oh, all right. Is that in here then? All right. Okay. This sounds great. I like the attention to customizability. Since the sync interval can be custom, and there is no interface for doing this currently on the client, how would a user change the sync interval? This might be something we need to add. So we'll try this out. We'll have it update the dialog so that when you're importing a calendar, maybe we'll just have a priority. That's probably better. There's no interface. Okay, let me add that. Let's see what it decides to do. I think the best way to do this would have just kind of like a priority selector, so that they can't fine grain say do this every 18 minutes or something like that. Just say this is high priority, low priority, medium priority, and then that will be the intervals it mentioned before, like maybe 1 hour, 4 hours, 6 hours. But let's see what it comes up with. Part of this exercise is just to see what AI wants to do. it is kind of crazy that it has this level of understanding of what I'm trying to do and what it's trying to do. Um, it's able to fix its own bugs. So this is pretty cool. I get to work with AI training tools. I'm in the AI infra space right now, and I'm helping our ML engineers with tooling as they train models. But I haven't gotten to implement too many apps with Gen AI on the other side. So I'm more on the back end side of Gen AI. We're helping people who know how to train models do their job. But this is the cool output. This is all Gen AI. It's basically using an LLM agent to understand what you're asking it to do, to understand what it needs to do, and then to understand how to do that in code. And it's doing it in both React and JavaScript. Well, React is JavaScript, but TSX, so there's some HTML and CSS involved as well, which it's actually pretty good at. So it's writing TypeScript, it's writing CSS, it's writing HTML. It's also writing JS to do these threshold checks and to talk to APIs. And it's using a managed API, so it still seems like what we have in this result. We have a Vite client running in web dev mode. And then for the database and API layers, we're not running a separate server of our own. We're talking to a managed Postgres API. So I still think I'm going to want a local node service instead. So right now I just have a web client running. That's what's running this React app. And that's what I would run at home. But I don't necessarily want it, because this said for faster local syncing, but it's using a managed Postgres instance. So that's not actually happening. I'm still querying everything online. But we'll see. We'll get there. All right. So we fixed the JS syntax. Test import calendar. Let's see what it decided to do. Every hour. Recommended. Every 2 hours, every 6 hours, once daily. I think this is fine, actually. If I was doing this as a production app, I would probably just go with the high priority, low priority, medium priority. I don't know why I keep saying it in that order. And not give them these fine grain, because the problem with this, like, if you imagine this going to users of yours, especially if it's a free app, you have users that are just kind of what I'm doing with Replit. I'm trying it out. I don't worry too much about the impact on the API. I've already paid for it for 1 month. It looks like I get unlimited calls to the agent. So I'm not too worried about usage and optimization and being careful. So if I had this as a free app and people just kept putting every 15 minutes here, and say I had 100 users, 1,000 users come in, and now I'm starting to see a pretty heavy load on my APIs, I might never want to offer people 15 minutes. We might decide as a product that an hour is the smallest threshold you could go. And so in that case, if you abstract that away, and that's why I was thinking if you have high, medium, low, or critical, maybe you add 4 thresholds, whatever it is, you get to decide, and you can change it easily. So now, like if I pick 15 minutes here, and I just have this sit here every 15 minutes, I'd have to migrate the database to go in and change anywhere it says 15 minutes to say an hour. Where if you just have it as a threshold to say critical, or is critical, or have a status column, and then you change the code to say, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to sync every hour, and critical is going to be every 30 minutes now instead of every 15 minutes. I don't know if I explained that well, but basically you want to abstract that choice from the user into code so that I would have the flexibility to say, you know what, every hour is absolutely killing my servers. The lowest I'm going to let anybody go is every 6 hours. And that might be a decision that we make as a product. But since I am the product and I am the user, we're going to stick with every 15 minutes. I just want to see this work since this is a test calendar. Fed calendar. There's my thing here. Let's do red this time. We're going to add, let's see if it shows it here. Okay. So it did update this. Enable OAuth. I probably can just have them change that button to be OAuth. So that's pretty big. sync remove, has the URL, Google, never synced, sync frequency, 15 minutes, and then I can edit this sync frequency. That's kind of cool. So let's sync it. Let's add OAuth. And then let's see if this persists. All right. We have OAuth enabled. It's synced. We could probably make this display a little bit better so it doesn't have to probably again just green check OAuth means it's enabled. You don't have to say enabled. Sync frequency is 15 minutes. It was last synced here at 10:56. All right. So we have our team meeting. Oh no, we have these red ones. That's right. So our test event was yesterday. It's synced. That's true. Yes, see, it didn't update this. This still says 10:05. So let's edit this to be 11:25 to 2 p.m. We want to do it 5 minutes before and 30 minutes before. All right. So it says it updated it. It did change it visually. Oh, I don't like how this does that. All right, we need to fix the padding here. Oh, you know what? It's probably because test notification fed event starts at 11:25. All right, we're back to some bugs here. This is not 30 minutes before. I guess it is. It's past 30 minutes before. We're at 10:58 though. All right, well, maybe that's just an edge case. It was 30 minutes before, but it let me know that. I guess that's fine. That's fine. We just changed it, and it kind of. But I don't know what would happen if it does that. If I have like a imported calendar that has a year's worth of notifications from earlier, am I going to get all of them dumped out? That's something worth trying. But this seems to work. The sync is good. We have some padding issues. But this looks good. Let me open this up in a new tab and see what happens. Do I get... If I refresh this... Although I guess this is the right time. Okay, yeah, the padding is fine actually. It's just not responsive enough, but that's fine. All right, we are getting this problem where it's just telling me every single time. Did I get this over here too? No, that might just be it hooking in again because I didn't get it on this app. I can still click here, yeah. Reminders in 20 minutes. All right, so I think that might have just been, but I think that is going to be a problem. We're going to have to remember to come back to that. Basically, it sounds like as soon as it loads all these events, if any of them were in the past, it's going to hit those reminders. No, it is happening. It is happening. Okay, we still have that bug. All right. Yep. Okay, well, now we can fix this bug. So every time it refreshes, I should have this. And let me check. I don't know if this updated my calendar. It doesn't look like it did. All right, that's the first thing I'm going to have it fixed. This looks like it is working. Great. I like the drop down. I like the options. We have an issue. We have a bug to fix. Changing. I won't call it changing. I won't call it editing. Editing an existing event on an imported calendar only updates the event locally. It is not pushing it to the calendar service, even with OAuth. Let me try adding an event. Fed test 2. Fed calendar. Yeah, we're definitely, this is annoying as hell. We want it to start at 11:15, go to 12, 5 minutes before, save event. All right, so we have 2 for today, 11:15, 11:25. That does work. Okay, so creating works. That just popped on my other calendar. creating a new event works as expected, but the changes to existing events on imported calendars are not getting through to the service. All right, let's see what it does with that. I'm going to have it fix the reminders too, but let's just make sure after it makes these changes, when it refreshes, see if our calendars come back in. That will save us having to do this. I can see from the logs that new events are successfully created, but existing events only update locally. Perfect. Of course I'm right. I just tested it. I could see the issue. The event update route does not have the Google Calendar sync logic. Oh, it does have it, but there are problems. Beautiful. This is actually, I do like this interaction. This is kind of like working with external developers, to be honest. But they respond really fast, which is kind of nice. Like I would feel bad if I was doing this unless I was pair programming or we were working in a pretty high priority issue to be pinging my developers and having them not do anything until I tell them about it. But that's kind of the trade-off you're making. If you had a human developing team, they would be figuring this out. They would be testing things, or you just log bugs in your like Jira, and then people would be addressing the bugs as they have time. So that might be a neat little integration, actually. I don't know if there's one that exists like that, but if you tied in, like if I was testing this and I just started popping bugs into a Jira project and then have a bunch of AI agents pick up the bugs and fix them so I don't have to keep prompting this thing, that would actually be pretty cool. I'm going to look into that. If anyone knows, if you end up watching this video, I don't know who's going to find it, but if you know of such a service, put some comments in there. I think that'd be pretty cool, because right now what I have to do, as you've seen, I have to wait for it to tell me what it did. I have to test it myself, and then nothing changes until I tell it again what to change. So it would be nice to kind of replicate a normal engineering team flow where you fill up a backlog of items, people pick up the backlog. So if you had like 2 or 3 agents, depending on how much you had to spend on it and how much time it took, they could pick up items, tell them that they're done. You could put it in some sort of like UAT flow, user acceptance testing. So then I could come back to it later and be like, oh, they said they fixed the reminders. Let me go check that. And then once you approve it, then the code gets into production. Because right now it looks like it's either being worked on by the agent and then it commits it. And then that's just your production code, which seems kind of scary. If you could implement or introduce a UAT phase, a staging phase, so it's committing code into maybe its own branch. Maybe it's branched by agent or branched by ticket, which you would do in a normal development team. And then you kind of have a release manager, which eventually you could make an AI agent as well and just say, hey, all these tickets have been confirmed, merge them into master and push it. And that way you get a little more resiliency in a little more protection. So it can push all the changes it wants. It can submit PRs for all of the changes. This is what you would ask a human to do. Submit a PR, have someone else review it, have someone else merge it in, or that person merge it in. So I don't know if there's a tool that approaches AI agents like this. Maybe they're too new, but that would be really cool, especially because these are spinning up, like this Replit agent has its own version of this app. So that is exactly what you would want to do as a developer. You'd run a local instance, you'd make sure it works for you, you'd push your PR up, someone would review it, and then the ideal scenario at any place I've worked is to be able to spin up that feature branch on its own just to make sure it works, and then merging it in. So you'd have a bunch of feature branches, kind of like a Git flow style workflow, and then have it merge changes in that someone has confirmed work. And then that way you could have a bunch of agents making a bunch of changes to code. You try to keep a flat Git history and another agent potentially, or just a human if you want to be the person, if you want to go and cherry pick things you approve. And then that way you don't accidentally blow away your database. You don't accidentally break your entire app. Someone's actually checking it. And if you do, because you're promoting code changes, you can roll back and say, oops, we pulled in this changelog of events. One of these PRs that we pushed to production ended up breaking the app. We're going to roll back to this previous PR. We're going to see what happened. And maybe you have to get a human in there. Maybe you could tell the agent to say, hey, look at everything that's changed. This is what broke. See how you can fix it. But anyway, back to our session here. It reloaded the app. I didn't have to re-import my calendars. So I have this, and this test notification was the one I'm trying to change. So let's edit this to be 11:45, and the end time is going to be 2:45 p.m. We'll do 5 and 30 minutes. Update. Okay, it updated here. I'm looking at my Fed calendar in Google. It has not changed. Still hasn't changed. Let's refresh. Nope. Still says 10:05. All right. We still have a problem. Changes to imported events from imported calendars are still not being synced to the source calendar. Instead, they are only applied locally. Can you fix it so that it pushes the changes made locally to the imported calendar source as well? Okay, so I asked it to do it. It said it did it. It didn't do it. Something didn't work. Might still be another bug in there. Parse reminder to minutes function. Okay, so it might be because I have the reminders. It sounds like it tried to sync it, but it didn't send the right format. That's what happened before when we were creating events. It was sending the wrong format. And since we added 1 in 5 minutes, Google might not have like a 5-minute interval. You might just have to send it when you want the reminder. I wonder if it has multiple reminders too. That might be a problem. Let me actually check on the Google side. Does this have 2 reminders? Notification. You can add notification. Yeah, it does have multiples. So that might be a little bit of a challenge for our AI application here. Is you can send multiple notifications. So let me try editing it with just one notification and see if that works. And then if that works and multiple notifications don't work, I might just have to ask it to enhance how it sends that format. Bidirectional sync's now working correctly for event updates. Let me also test event deletion to make sure that that works. Okay. I love how it tests its code. I mean, it sounds like it's mocking it, but that's fine. That's what I think is the best use of time, is to mock. As long as you're calling or sending the right pattern, you'd expect the server to do what it's supposed to do. If you have a misunderstanding of the format, that's fine. That's a bug that's hard to test, and then integration tests are hard to run. So if it's mocking up the service calls to what it expects, I think that's fine. Okay, it fixed the sync. Edit events. We have this problem. Starts at 11:15. It's showing me telling me that at 11. I'm going to ask it to fix that too, but I want to make sure this works. Okay, so this one doesn't even say there's a reminder on here. So let's do a couple things. Without a reminder, if I change it to 11:25 to 2:45, and I just update. No reminders. Let's see if it, okay. It did update that. Perfect. Now, let's do edit event, make it 11:45, and then we're going to do a 15 minutes before. Let's just do one notification and one change. Update 11:25. All right, I don't think that worked. So it still has a problem. Updating the event works fine. Updating an event with a notification is not working. 11:45. Wait, is that? It is working. It just didn't. Google didn't update. Okay, that is working. Let's see if I have the notification on the Google side. You can't see this calendar, but it is notification 15 minutes in advance. Okay. All right, let me make this a little more noticeable. This is, we definitely have a bug with our automatic reminders. This should not be, I should only be getting one of these. In fact, it should just use this list. All right, so we're going to change this 15 minutes before. We're going to keep that. We're going to do 2 now. 15 minutes before and 5 minutes before. We're going to make it 12:15 p.m. to 4:15 p.m. So I want to see this thing change. Update. Let's see. There we go. That worked just fine. Does this have 2 notifications? It does. All right. Fantastic. All right. That works great. So this is exactly what my Google Calendar looks like. If I go over here, where are we at here? All right. Let's update this calendar. 12:15, 11:15. Yeah, everything is looking great. All right. That did it. That did it. The updates are working just fine. This is a problem. I'm going to have it fixed. Let's add one more event. Fed test 3. Let's make it a different day. Let's make it for next Saturday at this current time, and we will do a day before. Now I got a bit of an issue. It should show up there. Interesting. All right, we have a separate bug. Is nothing showing up here? I don't know if maybe it doesn't. I would expect it to show, even though this is grayed out. I would still expect it. That would be helpful for me to see. Fed test 2 update with reminders. Yeah, we're getting duplicates here in 56 minutes and 56 minutes. All right, we have some sort of problem there. But let's make sure that created here. Ugh. How? All right, it is not on my calendar. What if I edit it? Will it create it then? All right, so we have a problem here. It should show up even when, so this is getting a little worse as we go. This, oh, no, this is a human error again. Okay. This is my bad. I didn't select, okay. Fed test 3, August 2nd, 11:15, one day before. All right, this is, I did this before. This was a user error. Okay. So this was on the wrong calendar. I didn't tell it to use Google. That definitely showed up. Okay. Luckily, I remembered I had made that mistake before. There's really no good way. I mean, I know I'm testing this calendar. It would be nice if it defaulted to my last recently used calendar, but I don't think that's going to be an important feature to have. So what I need to get rid of this notification problem. But the first thing I'm going to ask it to fix is, let's make sure this is not just like a syncing problem. This might just be a feature issue. I want it to show up here even though it's out of the current month. It might not have the logic. It might only be fetching the current month, but I would still like it to show events. This is working just fine. Now we have a new UI feature improvement. The calendar correctly shows the current month, but to keep the grid filled, it includes days from the previous and following. Okay, months. In the following months. This is helpful, but would be even more helpful if those extended days showed events they might have. Can you update the query in UI display to include any days display shown from months other than the selected month so that we can include their events? All right, hopefully it understood what I'm talking about. Basically, I should see an event here on the 2nd. I think that would be a helpful feature. And it doesn't have to query both months. It can, if that's the easiest way to do it. But it should know which days it's showing here. So it should know, it's probably just querying, give me everything for July 2025. And it should just say from the 29th to the 2nd. And then it can fill it in the grid. Yeah, calendar start and calendar end. Correct. Okay, that's what I figured was happening. It was just querying from the start to the end of the current month, which is fine. But now that we have an event on the 2nd, if I'm looking at this calendar view, there's no reason it can't just include 4 extra days. Maybe 7 extra days if it gets there, but should be pretty easy. Looks like it already had the right start and end time anyway, so it just has to increase the start and end times. So that shouldn't be a problem. And then I'm gonna, as the last thing of our vibe coding stream today, I'm going to fix the reminders so I don't have to do this on the next stream. So the next stream, what I want to focus on is I actually will probably dive into the code here. It looks like it's doing exactly what I asked. It's using a managed, I don't want it to do managed, but it's using a managed Postgres service. As long as I can just give it different connection strings, I can run this locally. So I'm going to dive through some of the code in GitHub. I may be done with the vibe coding portion for my vibe coding stream, but what I'm interested in is what does this code look like? Now, it looked pretty good from the diffs I could see. All right, there's the previous months. That's fine, but it actually doesn't have, it's not getting my August 2nd. So I'm going to ask it to do that for all the imported calendars too. Yeah, so this is, I want it to do this, but it needs to do it for the imported calendars too. That's great. I see the event from the previous month. However, this doesn't seem to be including imported calendars. For example, I know there is an event in the Fed calendar on August 2nd that is not being displayed in the subsequent month at the end of the grid. Can you confirm, can you check that this extended query is including all events regardless of source in our database? I'm curious why this wouldn't work actually. It should have the event once it's been synced, so why would it not include? It might just not be going to the, it might just have a bug that it's not going forward. Because the whole benefit, or one of the benefits of it being unified in our progress database is this query should just bring back any calendar event. So it found them. Yeah, all right. So probably just a bug because it looks like it had a next month. You can't see what I'm pointing at. it had a next month test event here, and that didn't show up either. So it sounds like the query just might not have gone forward correctly because it definitely went backwards. So if I added an event on August or June 29th, that probably would show up. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'll add on June 30th so I can just double check both days' work. Yeah, the calendar front end isn't fetching the correct date range. That makes sense. So the query works. It has the event. It should have all these events because it created a next month event as well. So it's probably just it would make sense that it's just a front end issue that it didn't tell it to include the first and second. Oh, well, that's interesting. So the calendar grid component is not respecting the parent component's date range. That's not something I would have checked for. Only 7 events are being passed to the component, not the full set. It is very good at debugging. Didn't fix it yet, but it figured that out. It means the issue's in the parent calendar component. It's not fetching the full date range or not passing all the events. Okay. Before I ask it to change, I'm going to add fed previous event. This is going, oh, actually, I can do this. Click it from here, fed previous month. We needed to go to fed. That's fine, I don't need to save that. Okay, so that shows up there. So these aren't showing up, all right. So that's working, okay. Okay, I see that imported calendars are being included in the extended date range. However, the grid is still not displaying events from the future months. It knows all my typos, but I don't like having typos. Can you double check? Alright, so we have the previous days is working just fine. Something is still wrong. August 2nd at, wait, why would it be August 2nd at 4 a.m.? Okay. August 3rd. What? Oh, 4 a.m., whatever time zone the server's in. I guess it's over in the, is it UK time? What is 4 a.m.? London time is 4:24 a.m. right now. UTC is 3:24 p.m. So I guess, yeah, what is it in UTC time? Next month test event. All right, there we go. Look at that. That is fantastic. All right, so that looks great. That worked. That did it. Last thing I want to fix is the notifications trigger is quite annoying and over notifying. It has 2 main problems. One, if it loads an event with a notification, in the past, it will trigger the modal. This should not happen. Only trigger the notification if the threshold is current. 2, once it displays a notification, it continues to display this notification. Perhaps this is the same issue as number 1, but we need to make sure both of these items get fixed. Also, whenever making changes to reminder notifications, test that the upcoming reminders list is still accurate. Okay. So I think now when I was typing it out, I think they're actually the same problem. So basically, if it loaded an event and it had a trigger in the past that passed the time threshold, it was notifying me like, hey, this event reminder was for a half hour ago, but you haven't seen it yet. So boom, there it goes. And then, maybe not even you haven't seen it yet. Then when it checked again, it was saying, oh, I already showed you this one, but it passed. So I think it might be the same thing. It passed the threshold, and then it notifies me again because it's just checking if that timer is in the past. But it shouldn't check if it's in the past. It should just check, well, it should check both. If it's in the past, hasn't seen it before. But I think it would be better, it has an upcoming reminders list, to just go against that list. If it's finally crossed it, do a notification and then remove it from the upcoming reminders. Found the issue. The reminder's working a 15-minute window. Okay. Yeah, so that's what it's doing. It's checking anything within the 15-minute window. So I think that's what we were seeing. It was like a half hour ago, but it was about 15 minutes in the timer. So it's kind of hard to test that now. I could do 1, 5, and 10 minutes maybe, and then I should only get one at a time. Yes, that's a critical. Preventing old reminders from triggering when the app first loads. That will be annoying. Right now I only have a couple in the past, but if I had years worth of calendar events, I don't need you to remind me of everything I needed to do in 2018. And it'd probably take all day to dismiss those. Okay. So that sounds promising. I think it was all the same root cause. So we shouldn't get any reminders. That looks great. Let's click here. What's upcoming? We have no upcoming reminders. Is that correct? I don't think that's correct. Let's see. This should sync to Google. Wait. I didn't tell it. Did I give it that information? No. All right. So it looks like it's syncing the event, but I believe there's reminders on these. Yeah. Okay. So now I think it's not even reflecting the reminder. So I have the 12:15 event should be notifying me at 12:10 and 12. And according to our calendar here, that is not happening. So this one should have 2 reminders. All right. So let's just add a local event here. Test 2 reminders. This is 11:30. So let's start this at 12 p.m. 12:30 p.m. Wait, let's do 3. I said 2. Let's do 3 reminders. Test 3 reminders. Okay. Boom. Test 3 reminders. Okay, 24 and 24. No, this is not correct. In 28 minutes and 24 minutes. What is this? That should be telling me when the reminder's about to happen. So this, in 5 minutes before 12, it should be happening in 24. That's correct. This one's wrong. In 15 minutes. This isn't 24 minutes. Today at 11:55, 11:59. Yeah. The 15-minute calculation is wrong. Okay. I noticed the threshold for the 15-minute before reminder is not being calculated correctly. It has the same timer as 5 minutes before. Can you go through the reminder logic and make sure it is correctly calculating when the reminder trigger should occur for any time period? All right, I actually don't know why that would be different. It should just be doing a straight calculation. It could be a UI bug. But I'm going to spend another 10 minutes with these reminders, and then I'm going to have to call it for today, and we will come back and dive into the code in the next stream, maybe tomorrow. So here we go. I can see the issue now. The reminder calculation looks corrected in the worker. Okay. The reminder calculation logic is duplicated, but not properly implemented. I don't know why. It should just be looking at the time and doing the calculation. Yeah, the calculation, I don't think it should even care what the available intervals are. It should just get an offset. So if you're saying, here's the event time, remind me at minus 15 minutes or minus 60 seconds, whatever it is, just do the calculation there. It's passing it as a label. It sounds like it's passing 2 minutes before. I don't like that. It should be an offset. Otherwise, anytime we make changes to this, it's going to have to match on that string being 2 minutes before. I don't even have a 2 minutes before. All right, so let's see. At least we have all the same stuff. In 1 minute for 2 minutes before, immediate test. Test 3 reminders in 11, in 21, and 25. Okay, so this is actually correct now. This is correct. But I'm not a fan of the worker calculation being so rigid. Can you refactor it so instead of relying on known intervals that it can accept a time, a numeric offset, and calculate the reminder from that? The caller should handle parsing any string pattern into a known time offset so that the worker code is more flexible and less error prone. Because this is working. This is fine. But we've run into 3 issues with this now of it having the wrong offset. And I added, the problem that we ran into in the beginning of the stream was because 15 minutes was the smallest interval, and it made a number of assumptions based on it being 15 minutes exactly. And now it sounds like when we added 1 minute and 5 minutes that it was passing the string that said 1 minute before. So if we passed 2 minutes before, like it says here, it didn't know what to do with that. I don't want it. Just pass in minus 3,000 or something like that. Okay, so this sounds like it's a better improvement. In fact, I would never have known that. But this is something that if we were doing the code review process, if I saw a PR come in and they were converting the string 2 minutes before into a number, I would be like, hey, I'd tell them the same thing in the code review. Just accept an offset here. But again, I didn't see what this code is. I'll dive into that. We'll do a whole separate stream because it's probably take me another hour or so. We'll dive into these diffs because they're persisted back here in Git. So I'll do some diff reviews. So I'm getting in meta phrase now. We'll get PR reviews on these things, as if I was PRing them, just to see what it's doing. So this shouldn't have a noticeable, like it should all look the same. Whoops, it's broken. Add days is not defined. So the app crashes when I click the reminders button. Add days is not defined. Can you run through tests and make sure notifications and upcoming reminders is working with your recent changes? All right, so this will be the last thing that we do. I'm at 11:37. I got a notice. Yes, it is. I see the issue. When I refactor the reminders, I remove the add days import, but it's still being used elsewhere in the component. Okay. Okay. So overall, assuming this works, we had it fix our reminders logic. We actually had it refactor it so it's a little more flexible. There we go. 6 minutes, 11 minutes, 16 minutes, 20 minutes. It's in, wow, we got a lot of reminders here. 11:59, 11:55. So this looks all correct. Test 3 reminders. Let's make this 11:41 a.m. Boom. Let's make sure we're not getting duplicate reminders. So this should be coming up. Test 3 should be coming up in a minute. All right. I need to make that a little bit 41. Okay, 1 minute away. All right, because we kind of, I don't know, got confused there. So let's make sure we get this notification. The upcoming reminders looks perfect. Let's load this over here. See what we get. Yep, this is the display at the actual 1920 by 1080 that I will be just using. You can see it fits a lot better there. Our reminders are the same. It says now. All right, I'll have to fix this later. It looks like we keep cycling back and forth between, like, the upcoming reminders looks fine. The upcoming reminders logic is great, but we are, again, not seeing real-time notifications. Carefully update that logic based on what we improved for the upcoming reminders, and make sure it notifies properly and the code involved is as flexible as possible. Oh, there we go. Test 3 reminders 1 minute before. Okay, we don't have a bug. It was 11:42. It's 11:41. So now was just, and that's gone. So I think we're good. I'll just sit here for another 30 seconds and we'll make sure we don't get that again. Otherwise, I think we're in a really good spot. Did that notification pop up over here? It did. Test 3 reminders. You can see our little progress bar. I'm going to ask it to make that animation a little smoother, but that's really low key. So test 3 reminders, 1 minute before. Event starts at 11:42. I probably have it auto dismiss a lot faster too. You don't need to see it for a full minute. Just have it take like 15 seconds. That's probably fine. But all right, so we added database to this. It was pretty easy. You could see it working through refreshes. It's now, let's try our search here. Test. There you go. We got test 2, test 3, next month events, June, July. So I think what I'm going to ask it to do in the future is this search should be sorted by, how would you sort this? Probably events closest to today. Would you want to sort? Here's what I'll do. I'll ask it to add a feature. By default, it should sort anything in the future, or it should only find items in the future sorted chronologically. But we can have another one to be like include past events, and then we can just sort it by relevance at that point. Yeah, I think that's what I'll have it do. So default to sort chronologically, have an include past events, and then that's just sorted relatively by ranking, by basically how close the string matches. But I think we're in a good spot. The vibe coding, as you can see, I didn't have to write any code. I did have to write a lot of characters. I probably typed as much as I would have if I coded some of these features. But the fact that it can figure out all this context and we were able to get it where we wanted, don't know how much time it saved me. It probably saves a good amount of time, but I think there's a lot of promising potential in this. If you can, like, I can't prompt multiple agents. I'm kind of the bottleneck still. But if I had a system similar to what I was mentioning where I could just open bugs and the agents could grab those bugs and fix them, I think that would end up working a lot faster because then you can distribute. I can test through this. I could type a bug just about that. An agent can grab it. I could type more bugs up. And then that way I'm not the bottleneck waiting for this one thing to work, and I can bring up these chats in different threads. So, but for doing what we did right now, I still think this is faster than me coding it. It's definitely a lot less frustrating to have it coding this. One thing I'm also noticing is these are growing in height, which I guess is not a huge problem because I don't have any other events. So I think this would eventually even out if we had kind of a similar, I'd have to make sure this scrolls. But I think that it does. So anyway, I think this was a good use of time. It's actually a lot of fun to do. As a programmer, I know I can do a lot of this, but the fact that I don't have to write the code, I don't have to test the code, I'm waiting for this to do its thing. And if I get better at it, I can probably even open 2 different threads and have it doing multiple things. I'm not sure, but I'm kind of waiting here. But it's fun to learn what it's doing. I like how it explained to me, like it pointed out how it was doing this interval logic that I was able to ask it to fix. Whether it fixed it or not, we'll look into the diffs, the PRs tomorrow, and we'll see if it fixed these and how it wrote the code. But overall, I'm having a lot of fun vibe coding. I don't know if anyone out there has been vibe coding. My thoughts on it right now is it's a very useful tool for someone like myself who knows how to do this themselves. I know what I'm looking at. I know what to ask it for. I know what's possible. I know it's not a great approach. I have ideas of what would make more sense. I'm also a little more keenly paying attention to what it's telling me, just like I showed with the way of doing interval. I think if you were getting started coding, you'd probably have to approach this from a different standpoint. Ask it to do more basic things and spend more time. Like every time it builds something, you should probably, the problem also as a newer developer is if you were to look at what it did here, you can see what it's writing, which is cool. It gives you an idea of how you can do this and what your files can look like. The thing I would be mindful of is I'm not sure how good of an example any of these things are. So if we look at some of these changes here, like if you see this, this is actually, I would have noticed this really early on in a PR. If reminder in text includes 15 minutes, like this is even, it's not even matching it directly. It's doing an includes, and then it's adding this time. So I'm going to have to find out where it did this instead. This is not great. You should really be mapping this label, maybe have an enum of labels to time offsets. So you're not matching this as an includes, and you can just look up the string 15 minutes should be a key, and then that key should have minus 15. Or I would actually go down to the seconds. You're not going to have people changing milliseconds, but you might be having it in 30 seconds. And then what are you going to do? You can't do minus 15. You do minus 0.5 maybe? I don't know. So basically you would want to have an enum, or at least an object of key to time offsets. And then all you have to do is pass in, where are we, reminders panel. For each reminder, calculate reminder time, offset minutes. So there you go. You just pass in the offset minutes. That's what you would do. And that way it's flexible. Like this can be any interval that you want, especially if you're programmatically being able to add this for advanced users. They could just type in, you know, minus 300 or something. So this is actually a really bad pattern. So if you were a newer developer and you saw this, you might be like, oh, I can just do if else, if else, if else. That's not good. This is a very bad, if you see yourself doing this, this is a bad pattern, and you probably want a switch statement or an enum or a utility function rather than doing this. So this is something like, as a newer developer, you got to be mindful of. But again, if you didn't know that even how to write this code, and you saw this and you wrote it, you're learning just like we're all learning. Like I've learned not to do this many, many years ago, but there's plenty of other things I'm learning that someone who's better at it would look at it and go, you shouldn't really do that. You should do this instead. So the fact that AI can't really do that for you as a junior or entry-level developer, be careful. Use this to learn basics, but try to find a human, especially if you have it in your job, you should be getting this. If you don't have a job doing this yet, then it's fine to learn, but also read some blogs, look at other people's code, try to work with other more senior developers who can let you know if what you've started to learn is a bad pattern. Because this is part of what you'll get from working at an actual development environment with real human developers, is someone's going to review a diff like this, a PR, if you put a push-up code like this, and I would come back and say, hey, this doesn't look good. Why don't you move this into an enum? And then you might be like, I don't know what an enum is, or how would I do that? And then you can work with someone who can teach you how to do this. Or you can ask AI, hey, turn this into an enum, and they probably can do that for you too. So this is, I think, the difference between using AI as a senior developer, where I can go in and ask it. I did ask it to refactor it. It looks like it did a good job doing it. I'm not going to dive into it right now, but it looks like it actually did refactor and try to make it more flexible. But as a junior developer, use this tool, pay attention to what it's doing. If something doesn't look right to you, ask it. You can even ask it like, hey, is this the best way to do this? Or what do you think about this? And just try to dive into, before you commit a pattern to memory or you make it a habit, double check that it seems right to you. If you're typing a lot, if you're repeating yourself a lot, if you see it using the same logic in multiple places, you probably want to refactor that out. So that's just things you'll get better at as you develop more. And as a senior, this is actually kind of fun to ask an agent to do things and give it feedback and check into it. So I will definitely be revisiting this app. I'd like to see what it did. And then the next stage, I'm going to see how easy it will be for me to convert this into my local development environment. If I can just take the code out of GitHub, run it in my node process, and maybe point it at a local Postgres instance instead. If I can do that, then this is a big win. And I can deploy this next time we go through this, unless there's some major changes. But so far, this is looking really good. It's doing exactly what I had in mind. And we will dive into the code in next session and see what it wrote. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing some more of these vibe coding sessions. We'll be doing other apps. This is just my my family calendar app. This is a project I've been wanting to do for probably a year now. But I have some other apps in mind, and if people start watching this and enjoying this type of content, I would love to take suggestions of what apps we should dive into and try to build. So thanks for watching. I'll break this up into some shorts, so keep an eye on the channel. Give me some comments, give me some suggestions of what you'd like to see or what I can explain differently or what maybe I didn't get into that you'd like to know about. So